Um, I'd like to ask a question about the state, if it can be called that, of being awake or awakening. I feel like there's these beliefs that we have about the awake person being in bliss and being, in constant love and constantly walking around, being aware that they're aware.
Am I a disappointment?
No, not at all. On the contrary, my realization did not come with bliss. It came with a deep sense of aloneness. And after, when the mind came back, and I was almost like, I want my money back. Where's the bliss? This is not what I've been searching all this time. And yet the clarity of it could not be denied. But even when I'm in the process of being every day, and that this body is not there, this mind is not there, this story is not there, I can't say that I'm aware that I'm aware. I just am. I don't know what I am. I can't know what I am. I can just be what I am. And so I get confused in terms of, what is it that we're supposed to know, and what is it what it's supposed to look like, so to speak. And of course, there's always the mind that comes up and says, you did it wrong, or you got something wrong, or there's something wrong. And yet, there's a knowing that there's nothing wrong. Does that make any sense?
Everybody knows that I am. But not everybody knows the nature of the I that I am. So a further discovery is required, other than simply knowing that I am. Now, in order to know the nature of what I am, we have to attend to what I am. In exactly the same way that if we want to know the nature of anything, we attend to it. We give our attention to it. So having discovered that I am, the next step is to give our attention to the I that I am. Now, what would give its attention to the I that I am? Who would give attention? And what exactly would the attention be that we attend to the I that I am? Are you with me? Yeah. Well, obviously, the only one that can give attention to what I am is the one that is aware that I am, because that is the only one that knows or is aware that I am. In other words, it is the very I that I am that attends to itself. So that is this turning around of the attention that Ramana Maharshi called self-inquiry. The falling back of attention into its source, in order to discover not just the fact that I am, but the nature of the I that I am. And it is in this this attending to ourself, or this abiding in or as ourself, that the memory of our true nature comes to us. Now, when I say the attending to ourself, I know that you understand. We cannot attend to ourself as an object. The sun cannot turn round and shine on itself as an object. So to attend to oneself simply means to be knowingly oneself. And as we abide knowingly as ourself, the qualities, if we can call them qualities, the qualities that are inherent in ourself begin to, as it were, emerge gradually in most cases from the background. And the first quality to emerge in most cases is peace. This undisturbable quality that awareness has, that no matter what is going on in the foreground of experience, thoughts and feelings and activities and relationships and perceptions, etc., in the background, or at least it seems to be in the background first, there is this imperturbable peace. And that is what's called in Sanskrit ananda. Sat, being, chit, consciousness or knowing, the knowing of being as it is the experience of ananda, the experience of peace. And it was wrongly translated by the early travelers to India as bliss or ecstasy, or because it was mistakenly considered to be a state that you go into, a kind of blissful ecstasy that you go into. And indeed some people do go into blissful ecstasies, but they come out of them again. So they're not profoundly satisfying, because nobody wants a temporary blissful state of ecstasy or happiness. We want lasting happiness. So Ananda really is this peace, which is in most cases felt in the background of experience. And then in time, as this imperturbable peace in the background, the peace that passeth understanding, as it's felt more and more and more, it begins to outshine the objects in the foreground. The agitated thoughts, the agitated feelings, it's as if they begin to get drowned in the peace. They can no longer stand as agitated thoughts, because they're just beginning to be drowned by the peace. So the peace, it's as if it comes from the background into the foreground and begins to spill over into the foreground of our experience. That is thinking, sensing and perceiving. It begins to infiltrate the way we think and feel, and then in time the way we act, perceive and relate. And it is this spilling over of the peace from the background of experience into the foreground of experience that peace turns into happiness. It is experienced as more as happiness as it begins to flood the foreground of experience. That's what Ananda is. It's not a state. It's not a gleeful state where you walk around the streets all day in some kind of ecstasy. It's not like that. Sometimes it can bubble over into a great feeling of joy or gratitude, but it doesn't bubble at high frequency all the time. And when it stops bubbling, it just goes back down to peace again. Ivanama expressed it so beautifully. He said, happiness is peace in motion. Peace is happiness at rest. It's the same substance. And for most people, we find it first, and not for everyone, but for most people, it seems to be in the background first, and only gradually to infiltrate the foreground of experience.
So is it accurate to say that sadness, frustration, all of these things come up, but they're permeated by a deep peace or a sense of peace.
What would frustration permeated by deep peace feel like?
I have no idea.
Nor do I. It wouldn't be very frustrating.
But it could come. It could come up as a feeling sense.
These residues of these feelings may still come up for a while, but they would very quickly be eclipsed. Because in order, for instance, in order for frustration to be maintained, it needs to be supported by resistance. I don't like what's going on. I wish it was different. I don't want to sit in this traffic jam. I want to arrive where I'm supposed to be going. But who is saying that? Is awareness saying, I don't want to be stuck in this traffic jam, I would rather be in... Awareness is not saying that. So you might be sitting in a traffic jam. You might realize that you're about to miss your plane. A series of feelings may come up, but very quickly it would give way. The peace would win. And then in time, because the frustration knows that its days are numbered, it wouldn't bother to show up in the end. It's not worth it. It knows it can't win. So it just starts showing up less and less. It doesn't mean you become a perfect body-mind and you never feel the slightest frustration or a moment of irritation. That may continue, but less and less. And above all, when those feelings do arise, they no longer have the power they used to have to persuade you to buy them. They rise, and because there's nothing supporting them, they fall very quickly. And in time, they show up less and less. You can never say they never show up, because how do we know what's around the corner? So it's best not to say never. It's best just to say less and less. And as these kind of feelings show up less and less, the innate peace and happiness of our true nature just prevails more and more in our experience. It's like the constant background of our experience that at the slightest provocation bubbles over into the foreground. So don't think of Ananda as ecstasy or bliss, because in the English language, bliss means something different from what it means in India. It has this exotic, colourful connotation to it. It's just the happiness that is inherent in the knowing of your own being. Now, if you find that these feelings are showing up often, in other words, they're not gradually showing up less and less and lasting for less and less time, then you have to check and make sure that the I around whom the irritation or the frustration or the loneliness or whatever, you have to make sure that that I is really not there. These feelings can still show up for a while after the separate self has been truly seen to be non-existent. In other words, after we have truly realized our nature of ever-present, unlimited awareness. But these feelings still show up but as a habit. As long as they're just showing up as an old habit, that's fine. In time, they gradually die down. But what's important is to make sure that their root, which is the separate self, has really been uprooted. One of the ways, and I'm not suggesting that this is what you're doing, but it's just a passing comment, one of the ways on the contemporary non-dual scene that these feelings are dealt with superficially is by these feelings plus the separate self around whom they revolve is still very much alive. And in order to accommodate the separate self, some contemporary expressions of Advaita just say, oh well, the separate self and all its suffering is welcome in the awareness that I know myself to be. Everything appears in awareness, including my suffering, including my irritation, including my frustration, and I still get just as upset and angry and irritated as I used to be, but now I know that it all appears in open, empty awareness. That's it's kind of pseudo-Advaita. It's the separate self appropriating the Advaita teaching in order to subtly perpetuate itself. So there's a big difference between the separate self really being uprooted, and as a result these kind of feelings gradually disappearing, and the separate self being still very much active, expressing itself in these feelings as these feelings, and then somehow trying to persuade oneself that these feelings just all appear in awareness, and that the awareness that I am doesn't really mind these feelings. We're kind of fooling ourselves, and as I say, I'm not suggesting you're saying this, but we're fooling ourselves if we think that. So the important thing, first to know what we really are, and then these feelings, when they show up, they're just empty. They no longer have any separate self at their origin, and in time they just show up less and less.
Thank you.